Welcome back with a smiling face. Links to previous episodes are given in the video description, so don't forget to like, subscribe and share the video. Shadows of the Moon. Episode 6. Chapter 57-67. Liam. I was in my office with Damon. This was probably one of the rare times we were completely alone. To get rid of him wasn't overtaking me. The entire table and part of the floor were littered with papers and photographs. I couldn't believe I was in this situation, where we were trying to rule out those who had full alibis around the time of the murders. Zach, Damon, and I were the only ones working on this, and it was a lot. Maybe we needed to bring in a few more people. I know Dad offered and I might take him up on that. Mom had Auntie Monica and Azura to take care of. Maybe Raven. It would have been easier to just put them all under Alpha command. I said coldly, trying to focus. I still intended to do that, but only with those who had blanks in their alibis. We were hoping to cut out at least 80% of the pack. It's about trust and respect. Damon murmured, organizing the files into ranks. With a pack with over 1,000 members, it wasn't easy. At least we could rule out the pups. They'd understand. I said. Looking at the warrior files in front of me, taking a few papers that were stapled together, I tilted my head. I wouldn't be surprised if it's this. Damon turned to look at the papers I held. Owen. Yeah, he's but I don't know, I feel he's just too obvious. He murmured. And the job does feel too clean for him. I added, but still, we couldn't just cross anyone out. The pile of those who were definitely ruled out thanks to full alibis was small, less than 200. That was far too low. I'm covered. Damon said, holding up his pile, frowning when he saw the one under him. You got yourself here? I see 0cked a brow, massaging my temples, feeling a headache coming on. With my psychotic tendencies right now, I could be a prime suspect. I don't remember Jacob's arm off, so, the only ones spared from the assessment were Mom and Dad. The rest were on it to make it fair, although deep down I trusted Damon, Raven, and Zach. It was a guideline we were following. Zach did his search on me and Damon did Zach's yet and made a mess. This job is too clean to even think it's you. Damon murmured. Zach is totally covered. Great, at least 2 of the higher position ones are. The priority is the security team. Who do we have covered? Esteban. Drew. Ben. Cassidy. I nodded. That made me feel a lot better. Mom. I looked towards him as he picked up his mom's file and I felt a sliver of guilt. Putting Auntie Monica in this SHT wasn't right. He simply flicked the file open, staring at the many blank sections. It was obvious there LLB blanks. She stayed home for the most part. I won't put her under Alpha command. I said quietly. He looked at me and shook his head. No, I get it. He said, his voice as calm and gentle as ever, placing her file into the larger pile. I walked over, taking the file and putting it in the other pile. I said, I won't. I said firmly, my eyes flashing warningly, before walking back to my desk. A silence fell between us before he called me. Liam. I glanced at him, raising an eyebrow. Thanks. I appreciate it. He said quietly. I gave a curt nod and we continued our work. It was weird yet calming, almost like old times before our mate situation. Hours had passed and we were still working on it. Even Zach had shown up and we scoured through the files together. Damon had gone to get us some hot drinks and had just gotten back, shutting the door after him. Thanks. I said, grabbing a bar of chocolate from the tray, massaging my forehead. My eyes fell on the tub of painkillers and I glanced up at him, but he was back to his work. Thanks, but I wasn't able to say that to him. I took 2 pills, swallowing them down with some water. Shall we rule out the 10 to 14-year-olds? Zach asked, looking at a wad of files. No, we know even kids can be killers, I said, dropping back in my seat. I think it's a female. Zach said, suddenly making both Damon and I look at him sharply. What? Damon asked. Look, don't you think the job is really clean? I don't know. I feel like a female would be this precise. I don't think so. Men can be too. I shook my head. Any reply about the handwriting analysis? Damon asked. Yet, both are inconsistent with one another. There's been some tracing, some changes between the slant, and the speed and pressure of the pen varied drastically. I muttered. We only got that it is definitely the same person. So, they were careful there too. Zach muttered. And no scent. I said, frowning. As if the messages were written and kept until nothing remained, or they wore gloves and somehow disguised their scents. Were the papers tested for any remnants of scent masking sprays or anything? Zach asked. Yet, nothing. I frowned. And our werewolf abilities don't help with this? Damon murmured, grabbing a mug of hot chocolate for himself. Zach nodded, picking up his coffee and looking between the two of us before glancing away. Want to say something? I asked, C0king a brow. No, just glad we are working together. He said, with a small smirk. I said, ignoring Damon's grin. Raven didn't come home, did she? Zach asked hesitantly. She went to Taylor's, I said, frowning when Zach looked disappointed. My eyes narrowed. What's your problem with that? I asked icily. No problem at all. Zach said, but his tone said otherwise. He sounded down. Did he have a crush on her? My eyes flashed dangerously at the thought, but I don't know. I never got that vibe from him before. We finished our drink and I glanced at the time, 10 to 3. Let's call it a night. I said, running my fingers through my hair, knowing it was probably a mess now from the number of times I had run my fingers through it. I stood up stretching, I needed to sleep. Maybe I'll take her room. Although I wish I could cuddle up to her, I'm going to have to deal with her scent. Liam. Raven's whimper came suddenly through the link, making my heart thud. Why did she sound scared? What is it, love? Are you okay? I asked, my heart beating way too fast. 1,000 worries and fear rushed through me. Zach and Damon looked at me, sensing the change. She didn't answer. I rushed to the door, both boys instantly following me. Raven, where are you? I asked, fear enveloping me. Liam. Mom. Raven. Raven? But nothing. I felt as if I was hitting a wall and I knew she had not blocked me off. Something is wrong with Raven. I said, running down the steps and out the door faster than the other two. I'll link Taylor, she was with him. I heard Zach say as I rushed towards Taylor and Raven's parents' home. She had mentioned her mom. Did she link you? Damon asked, worry clear in his voice. Yet. I said, speeding up. I left them both behind. The moment I reached the houses, I saw Taylor banging on the Jacobs' front door. Alpha. Zach linked me. I pushed him aside, breaking the door down. Her scent was here. I ran up the steps, taking 3 at a time, then ran down the hall. The smell of blood hung in the air. Panic and fear wrapped around me, and all I could think about was Raven. Be okay. My heart was in my mouth as I pushed open the door to the master bedroom. Coming to an abrupt halt and my eyes widening in shock at the sight before me. Chapter 58. Damon. I ran into the Jacobs home a minute or so behind Liam, only to see him running down the stairs with Raven's body in his arms. What the? I need to get her to the hospital. She's injured and I think there's poison in her system. She isn't healing. Her mom's dead, he said, the fear and worry in his eyes tearing at my own heart. I nodded, knowing he was the fastest to get her there, but to my surprise, he held her out to me, his cerulean eyes full of pain. Make sure she's okay, he said, his voice hoarse. My heart thudded as I took her in my arms. She was tiny and didn't weigh much at all, her head falling against my CH3ST. I nodded, not saying anything, then turning and running from the house. I knew he wanted to find whoever did it, and I could see the pain in his eyes as he let her go. I could feel her blood coating my arm, which meant she wasn't healing. Was it the same poison that was killing the people around us? If it was, it meant we'd be able to save her. The fact that the killer let the body shut down itself by using a mix of ricin, silver, and wolfsbane was very intelligent. I quickly mind-linked the head doctor and told him I was on my way, filling him in on the situation and carrying my little mate as I ran as fast as I could. When a pack member is killed, or when they broke pack ties or joined another pack, the alpha would feel the pack link break. But when an ill person passes away or if someone is dying slowly, it wasn't really noticeable to the alpha. The tug was so subtle, you wouldn't realize it at all. These murders shut down the organs first, slowly yet surely. The fact that they seemed to have thought this entire thing out so cleverly worried me. Time was running out and we were no closer to the truth. I rushed to the room the nurse guided me to and placed Raven on the bed, placing a KSS on her forehead. She was pale and looked so fragile. Please step outside, Beta Damon, the doctor said, before he began to shout orders. She's been poisoned, get the antidote for silver and wolfsbane. The alpha said there may be ricin. We need to pump it from her body. Hook her up, check her blood pressure. I was pushed from the room, my heart thundering at the clear worry on the doctor's face. We couldn't lose her. I tried to contact Liam, but all I reached was a block. How is she? Taylor's strained voice came through the link. I don't know yet. Where's Liam? I asked. He's trying to search for clues. He's angry and I feel so guilty. I'm sorry, I swear I feel like SHT. I didn't hear her leave or I would have gone with her. I'm sorry, I know she's your two's mate and I can't imagine how you must be feeling. She'll be okay, I said softly. I ended the link, pacing the hall feeling so frustrated, worried, and helpless. I ran my fingers through my hair dropping onto the bench. Please be okay. I was scared of losing her. We needed her, heck I'd give anything for her to be okay. I'd happily take her place too. Her smile, her unique eyes, her selflessness. Come on Raven, fight. A few hours had passed, Liam had mind-linked a few times asking how she was, but that was it. He didn't say much but I could sense his pain from his voice, although he was desperately trying to hide it. Finally, the doctor said she was safe. The poison had been administered close to her neck, and if she had been brought in any later, things could have been worse. I entered the hospital room, a bandage was wrapped around her head. The doctor said she had been struck with a sledgehammer, but not with enough force to have done severe damage. Either the killer was in a rush to leave, or they were generally not strong enough. My thought went back to what Zack had said. Was it a woman? I brushed my knuckles down her cheek, a tingle of pleasure following. Her soft, plump L.P.s were parted slightly as she breathed softly. Her long black lashes fluttered slightly at my touch. I bent down and placed my L.P.s gently on hers. The sparks of the bond rushed through me, and the sweet taste of her mouth was something I wouldn't forget. That ache in my heart was growing. I didn't know if I had a chance, or if I ever would. She was that special, rare gem that you wanted to protect forever and not hurt anymore. I love you. I took her delicate hand in mine, thinking how small and slender it was in comparison to mine before I kissed it softly. I heard the sound of running and I knew it was Liam. I slowly placed her hand down, the pain in my ch3st heightening. She was meant to be mine too, but I couldn't have her. I smiled gently, just hoping that no matter what, she got her happily ever after. The door opened and Liam ran over. He was shirtless, the necklaces around his neck hitting against one another, the sound loud in this silent room. His eyes were fixed on Raven, his other hand stroking her arm, before he curled his fingers under her chin pressing his L.P.s to hers. His heart was racing. I knew he was worried as I had been, if not more as he wasn't able to be here. As I looked away, feeling the painful tug at the scene before me. His love was so intense for her. Was mine any less? Was there a difference between our love? Don't think like that, Damon. But no matter how much I told myself to stay positive, I did feel like I was losing all hope of the three of us making it work. Liam pulled the armchair forward, sitting by her bed, now holding her hand to his ch3st. Found anything? I asked. A footprint, a partial one, but it's there. The killer wasn't expecting Raven to show up, that was for certain. He said coldly. But we found no one that looked suspicious. Everyone seemed to have been asleep, but I did order a search of the nearest places. I don't know. I feel like we are missing something big. He said, running his free hand through his hair. I nodded, grabbing the other armchair and situating myself on the other side of the bed. I glanced at her hand and placed my hand over it, feeling Liam's intense gaze on me, but he didn't say anything. And was there a note? Obviously. What did it say? You deserved this. Chapter 59. Liam. I tried to tell myself that he was just holding her hand out of concern, that he was her friend too. But I couldn't deny the irritation that was flaring up inside of me. That anger threatening to lash out. I tried to focus on Raven, letting the tingles that coursed through me at our touch calm me. You deserve this. He repeated, frowning. Yeah, so, the three notes. The first said, who's next? The second, 2 down, I wonder how many more to go. And now this. There's nothing really in them. I said, pausing. You deserved this, is probably the most to go on. True, but who do they mean? Her mom? Raven? Do they have an issue with Raven? Damon mused. I frowned, clenching my jaw. These murders started when Raven came back to town. There may be a connection there. I said, suddenly thinking he had a point. Damon looked surprised at that, before becoming thoughtful. Good point. Do you think we should track down those who would have issues with Raven? I mean, her dad wouldn't kill his mate and he's in the cells, so he's ruled out as the killer. Yeah, I think we need to list anyone who may have any sort of link to Raven. I said quietly, just as the door opened and Dad stepped in. He glanced at us. I didn't miss the way his gaze flickered to both Damon and I holding Raven's hands. I swear if we weren't mated no one would have ever even thought anything of us holding her hand. So annoying. I think you need to make a list a lot broader than that. Dad said, checking the machine that Raven was hooked up to before frowning and sitting at the edge of the bed. She was so tiny, there was a good gap from the bottom and her feet. What do you mean? We're thinking of anyone who may have anything against her. Damon said. But I think I understood what Dad meant. You mean, people who may have issues against Damon and I, her parents, anyone who is somehow even linked to Raven, an indirect grudge, right? I said sharply. Dad smirked humorlessly and nodded. Yeah, exactly. He said, you two boys look exhausted. Head to bed, I'll stay with her. No thanks. I said coldly. If it was Mom, you wouldn't have left. He sighed. Once again I had to try to calm down. No, I wouldn't have, but you look a mess. Don't really care, you two can leave, I'm staying. I said icily. I could feel my anger flaring up and that bitterness towards everything beginning to flare inside. Let's go, Uncle. Damon said, and I was glad at least one of them understood. Dad shook his head but stood up. Damon placed a quick kiss on Raven's forehead before he walked to the door. Dad caressed her head before he too turned. Pausing at the door, he glanced back at me, almost as if he wanted to say something but decided against it and closed the door behind him. I didn't move. Even as the sun began to rise in the sky, I sat there waiting for her to wake up, but she remained asleep. The doctor came in around 7 in the morning to do some checks, asking if I wanted to rest or have something to eat. I refused. All I wanted was for her to wake up. Come on, love, wake up. Raven. My eyes fluttered open, and I stared at the sun that was shining brightly through the blinds. Liam's scent filled my nose. I looked down to see his head of strawberry locks resting on the bed near my arm. His hand was holding mine. I frowned, seeing the catheter in my hand, pulling it out irritated and confused. What happened to me? Where am I? I rubbed my head, feeling the bandages when I froze. My heart began to race as Mom's face returned to me. No. Was it a dream? It wasn't. I was in a hospital room. I looked around. Mom was dead. There was someone in that house. My heart was banging against my ribs painfully and Liam sat up suddenly, instantly getting up from the chair and sitting down next to me on the bed. Hey, baby girl, it's going to be okay. His voice, huskier with sleep, came as he cupped my face, pressing his forehead to mine. Mom. She's dead. Someone was there, Liam, I felt it, but I didn't hear a heartbeat. He pressed his LPS to mine, sending a wave of calmness and pleasure through me. His LPS grazed against mine sensually and I slowly calmed down. My rapid breathing calmed down and I slowly kissed him back. His hand moved from my face, tangling into my hair at the nape of my neck, his tongue slipping into my mouth. I sucked on it, letting him explore my mouth, M0ANING against him. His heart was beating fast and I could sense his emotions. I'm okay. I said through the link, pushing the blanket off me and getting onto my knees. I gripped his shoulders, blushing when I felt him throb against my core as I straddled him, kissing him harder. He broke away when I needed air, burying his head in my CH3ST. I blushed even more, but wrapped my arms around his neck, brushing my fingers through his hair, feeling so safe here in his arms. I'm okay. I repeated, kissing the top of his head. I'm not letting you out of my sight from here on out. He said with such conviction that I was worried he meant it. You don't mean that, do you? I asked suspiciously. He smiled and my heart skipped a beat. The sun shining on this handsome face of his. I do actually. No, I said, pouting, before hugging him tightly. You must have felt the link with your mother, right? He asked softly. I tensed before moving back and looking down at his glorious bare ch3st. I felt something, but I was asleep. My wolf was restless and she must have felt the link break with Mom's wolf. I whispered. He nodded. I'm sorry for your loss, even if she wasn't the best mother. He said quietly. I nodded, yeah, she wasn't, but I still loved her. I pressed my LPS together and looked into his eyes, feeling that prickle in my own that I did not want to feel. He looked down at me. I realized I was still in my clothes from last night, minus the cardigan. I clung to him, wrapping my legs around his waist like a monkey. I hugged him tightly. I remembered my last words to her. Wishing things had gone differently. Our relationship had been strange. Her passing was strange, but I would not cry. After a good few moments, I moved back, my gaze falling to his bulky arms as I tried to change the topic. Your biceps are thicker than my waist, I said, running my hand over one of his arms slowly. Are we going to compare body sizes now? He asked huskily. I stopped moving my hand up and down his arm. What else do you want to compare, our height? I said, frowning. No, if we're doing comparisons I would say there's a certain part of me that is definitely thicker than your forearm. He smirked and I froze. It took me a second to realize what he meant as I stared at my arm. If S*X seemed appealing a while ago, it was terrifying now. That would damage my insides. Raven. I blinked and looked at him. Are you okay? Of course I'm okay. I said, quickly climbing out of his *P and away from that very scary, forearm-sized thing. I couldn't help but stare at his crotch. Goddess. Liam looked rather amused. I quickly looked away. Just when Liam was about to speak, the door opened and Auntie Red stepped inside, her hair up in a high bun with a few strands out. Even at this age she looked like she was a model in her 20s, she had Azura in her arms and the little girl was holding a gift bag and flowers. Raven baby girl, thank the goddess you're okay. She said, coming over and giving me a tight hug. I hugged her back before giving Azura a kiss on the cheek. Auntie Red glanced at Liam when she moved back from me and C0cked a brow. Do I seriously need to have to see your morning wood every time? She asked, feeling my forehead. Then don't come at the wrong time. Liam growled before getting up and walking off to the adjoining bathroom. Auntie Red shook her head, before taking a seat on the bed. I heard about Kim. She said softly, placing her hand on my knee. I nodded, sighing deeply. What happened to your head, Waven? Azura asked, looking at my bandages. I bumped it. I said. Oh no, let me kiss it better. She said, crawling off Auntie Red's *P and giving me a hug, then a big kiss on top of my forehead. Ah! I already feel better, Zuzu. I said, hugging her tightly. She giggled and moved back. Mama. Gift. She said, holding her hands out to Auntie Red, who smiled at her and passed her the gift bag and the flowers. Just as Liam stepped out of the bathroom, I couldn't resist smiling at the fact he no longer had a hard-on. Look, I got Waven bonies and a teddy. She pulled out an adorable teddy bear and gave it to me. I took it and gave her a big smile. Thank you. Have you two had breakfast? Auntie Red asked. We shook our heads and I realized Liam was frowning. Azura was busy wrestling open the lid to the tub of brownies before taking one out and holding it to my mouth. I got to go. They've done some analysis on the footprint and found another not far from it, he said, making my heart skip a beat. Me and Auntie Red exchanged looks looking back at him. Really? I said, trying to swallow the brownies. Yeah, we'll see if it's anything, but there was a scuff of blood, so it may be something, he said, coming over. He sscd Auntie Red on the forehead before ruffling Azura's hair and sscd her cheek before turning to me. Get the rest you need, he said. Oh, and I wouldn't trust anything from Azura's hands. She picks her nose, he added through the link, making me smile before he took hold of my chin and tilted my face up to his. His L.P.S. met mine in a sizzling deep K.S.S. that made everything fade away. We parted after a few moments and Liam moved back. My eyes fell on Damon, standing there with a bouquet of flowers and a brown bag that I could smell contained breakfast. Guilt rushed through me as our eyes met, and I felt my heart completely crumble the moment that warm smile crossed his face. Chapter 60 Raven. I hated myself for this. I hated how I was making him feel. He was no less a man than Liam, he did not deserve this. Liam walked out, giving Damon a curt nod and shutting the door behind him. Hey, how are you feeling? Damon asked, about to place the gorgeous bouquet of purple flowers down when I reached out and took them. I'm great, and these are beautiful, I said, looking up at him. I'm such a horrible person. He bent down, wrapping his arms around me tightly. I hugged him back, his comforting scent and those tingles rushing through me. I could hear his racing heart, and the guilt inside of me only grew. I glanced at Auntie Red, seeing the sadness in her eyes too, before she looked away, smoothly busying herself with Azura's hair. Damon moved back and jerked his thumb at the paper bag. I brought you breakfast, he said, turning to Azura and raising his eyebrows playfully before flashing her one of his dazzling smiles. What breakfast is it? Azura asked, curiously staring at the bag that I just picked up. You've eaten, baby, Auntie Red said, cuddling her. Of course, she can eat again, there's plenty, Damon said, and I nodded. You look tired, I said to him, concerned as I unboxed the food. Chicken sandwiches, yogurts and a box of freshly cut fruit. Azura took the box of fruit and Auntie Red shook her head, settling back and helping her remove the lid. I'm not too bad, he said. I asked someone to bring you a drink. Thanks, Damon, I said softly. Auntie Red asked him something as I bit into a sandwich. Yes, I was ABH, but I needed to do the right thing, and I would, because this man before me deserved someone who would put him as number one. I had been discharged from the hospital that afternoon, and Uncle L had come to tell me that he had told Dad what had happened. Needless to say, Dad didn't take it well. Although Uncle L didn't tell me exactly what he had said, I had a feeling he had nothing but hatred and blame towards me. It seemed Liam was still going through with Dad's trial on Monday, something I was rather shocked about. I was even tempted to ask for an extension, but then I decided to leave it. I needed to let go of my past and remember how Dad treated me. He still had time before the trial anyway, although I knew losing a mate wasn't something you could just get over. I had gotten back to the pack house, managing to shower before a large number of the other members who lived there had come to ask how I was, several getting me flowers or cards. I found it so sweet. Mom's death still felt surreal. I was glad that it wasn't common knowledge yet, I just needed some time. It was a little awkward when two of the girls addressed me as Luna. I'm so sorry you had to go through that. Isla, one of the she-wolves, said sympathetically as she arranged the bouquet of flowers for me. I'll get someone to bring in more vases. Thanks. I said politely to her. The bedroom door was open and I felt a bit overwhelmed with the visitors. I just left the door open, which let me stay wrapped up in my blanket on the bed. I hadn't seen Liam or Damon again, although both had mind linked to check up on me occasionally. What SVCKED was that I couldn't really tell Kiera what was going on either, despite her texting earlier. I didn't mention my injury or that Mom was dead. Just then, someone I actually wanted to see walked through the door, and my eyes lit up. Taylor, I said. He flashed me a smile, his arms laden with a chocolate bouquet, drinks, and a hamper of more chocolates. Ah, this man was a keeper. Could I put him in my pocket and keep him forever? He placed the things down on the bedside cabinet next to me and the hamper on the bed. Hey, girl, he said, wrapping his arms around me and giving me a good squeeze. He moved back as Isla left the room, giving us some privacy and me a small wave. Thanks for everything. I called out, appreciating her effort in sorting my room a little, which was beginning to resemble a greenhouse. Okay, maybe that was a bit of an exaggeration. How you holding up? Taylor asked. I'm good. I said, Mom's eyeless face flashing in my mind. I'm so sorry, I should have taken care of you. He said, guilt in his eyes as he sat down opposite me. I shook my head, my hair falling in my face. No, you have nothing to apologize about. I went on my own and I made sure I was quiet. I said, pulling a wrapped truffle off the bouquet and unwrapping it. I was about to eat it but paused to offer it to him. He smiled, taking my hand and biting half off before feeding it to me, a warm smile on his face. You need to eat all the chocolate you can, it will bring your energy back. I'm sure the alpha or beta would like you to be at your best. He winked teasingly, yet my smile vanished. Liam's traumatizing revelation returning with full vengeance. Sorry, bad joke. I shook my head, glancing at the open door. Oh, don't even talk about men, I think I'm put off for life. I said, shuddering. Why? Taylor asked curiously. I hesitated. Wait. Taylor was a guy. I should ask him. Is it true? That, I glanced at the open door again and Taylor frowned slightly, getting up he went and shut the door, looking at me curiously. What is it? He asked. I huffed, embarrassed. Well, is it true that a man's can be thicker than my forearm? I asked, cupping my arm just beneath my elbow. Taylor's eyebrows shot up as he stared at my arm. That's one of a picture. A terrifying picture. He said, sounding amused. I frowned, oh, it was a terrifying thought too. It is, and now I'm scared, he began laughing and I glared at him. Hey, what's to laugh about? Sorry, it's just, like, seriously? I mean, maybe if we're talking huge, then about this thick at most, but even that would be super rare, he said, cupping the middle of my arm between my elbow and wrist. To my dismay, he fell back onto the bed and began laughing. Goddess, you are so innocent. Have you never watched porn? I mean, you must have seen an erect PS at some point, right? He burst into more laughter and I felt my face burn with humiliation. How could you even think would exist? Like, how would it be possible to even make that fit? Hey! Babies come out. Things can fit. I growled. I swear I am going to kill Liam. How dare he overbrag about his dick when I swear it's probably going to be the size of a fun-sized chocolate bar. The type you fill a party bag with tiny, minuscule and dysfunctional. Stupid alpha, okay, stop laughing, it's not that funny. I shouted, smacking his ch3st. He simply rolled over, laughing more. I kicked him off the bed, grabbing one of my huge plus highs and throwing them at him with as much force as possible. Stupid men. Ugh, Liam is so dead. Okay. I'm so sorry. Who told you that? Taylor said, his face red as he tried to control his annoying laugh. I swear if he laughs any more, I will sabotage that share poster he cherishes so much. Liam did. I said unhappily. Taylor grinned. Well, I would say he's boasting, but surely. You've probably seen him turned on, right? Like even if you haven't had S**x, maybe when you sscd. He questioned, making me frown even more. Of course, I have. I stated before my frown faded away and I realized what he meant. He nodded with a small smile. I have never seen a stupid forearm-size shaft in there. Yes, he was big but not that traumatizing big. Liam, you're so dead. Chapter 61. Raven. I was still fuming, and Taylor breaking into snickers every few minutes didn't help. Goddess, I can't believe I fell for that. Ugh, I'm so angry right now. Liam had mind-linked not long ago to ask everyone to report to the pack house meeting room. Me, Taylor and Nina, who had come to my room with more vases, now walked down the stairs together. I wonder what it's about. Taylor murmured. Maybe they found something. I said as we entered the large hall that was extremely full. Maybe. Taylor said, glancing around at the number of pack members that were gathered here. From my quick estimate, I think 2/3 of the pack were here. I saw Liam standing there at the head of the room, talking to Zach, well mind-linking. Liam was just nodding, his arms crossed with one hand on his chin. The frown on his face made me realize that he was still very much cold towards others. Although at times, I saw him bring those walls down. More people crowded in. Taylor and I made our way through the throngs of people until we reached the front and I realized that there were no children here. Uncle L was here, but Auntie Red wasn't, and neither was Damon's mom. I know you all probably have a rough idea of why I've called you here. However, with one more murder taking place, I think we need to put down some more measures. Initially, I didn't want it to come to this, but my hand is being forced and, as much as I hate this, if push comes to shove, I will put everyone under Alpha command to weed out the killer. Liam said, his eyes flashing dangerously. 3 people have been killed already. This isn't a joke, so I'm going to put some drastic measures into place. Everyone was silent as some exchanged looks, others were worried, whilst some waited to hear what he meant. He turned and his cold cerulean eyes met mine. His gaze raked over me, making my stomach flutter before our eyes met for a fleeting moment and he turned back to the gathered pack members. I won't hide the fact that every member of this pack, including myself, my beta and my delta have been cross-checked. Those who have alibis that are absolute will be the ones I'm putting on guard duty from now on. No, some of those accounted for are not warriors, but they will be given charge of the surveillance. A ripple of murmurs and uncertainty rushed through the room, and I frowned. That would drastically cut patrols by a lot. I know this isn't ideal, however, it comes down to the fact that anyone could be the killer. They could be in this very room with us, finding this a joke. If you're here then I'd like to say something. Liam continued. I will find you, and when I do, you're going to pay. For every person you have killed and hurt, directly and indirectly, you will pay for your crimes. A wave of unease crossed the room. I saw a few people glance at one another. Fear, untrust against one another. This is what was beginning to seep into the pack. The rest will be put under strict curfew. I don't care if you have jobs, work, or whatever to do, at 8 in the evening everyone is to head home. If rules are broken, I will start putting electronic tags on people, and I mean it. Dismissed. Liam said coldly, about to turn away. A murmur of shock crossed the room and even Damon and Zack looked at Liam in surprise. It was clear they weren't expecting that part. Uncle L frowned deeply. I felt someone needed to give the people some hope. Liam was about to turn away when I quickly rushed forward. Wait. Lee Alpha, can I say something? I asked. He turned back frowning slightly as I stopped right in front of him. Oh, I will bust you about the stupid forearm thing later, but right now these people needed some light. What is it? It's about the last death. I said quietly. He frowned and nodded. Those who had been about to turn away stopped. I looked at the group. I gasped when Liam lifted me onto the table that stood behind them. A few people chuckled and I glared at him. I'm not that small. Well, now I was a foot or so taller than him and I had a good view of the room. I know everyone has things to do, I also know we are all feeling super scared and worried. I am too. But it's okay to feel that way. I won't take too much of your time. I began playing with my fingers. The last victim was my mother, Kimberly, or as most of you knew her, Kim. I was the one who found her body. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the room. I even saw a few suspicious looks, but I didn't mind. It was human nature to look for something or someone to blame. It was our way of coping with things. I know things look rough now, but I promise things will get better. We will find the killer, and although the measures are harsh, I said, looking at Liam, I was not going to sugarcoat the truth. They are there for a reason, to protect us and our people. That's all we can do right now, and I'm sure we will get to the bottom of this soon enough. Many nodded. I felt the worry from them ease slightly. Damon gave me an approving smile and nod, Uncle L was smirking ever so slightly, and Zack nodded in agreement to my words. I looked at Liam, who was observing me with an emotion in his eyes that I couldn't read. He stepped closer to the table but I jumped down before he could even lift me down. I need to talk to you about something, I said, narrowing my eyes at him. He C0CKED a brow and nodded. I'll be stopping by tonight. Okay, I said, my stomach fluttering. I turned to Zack and Damon, looking at Damon. He deserved better. I would talk to him the next chance I had, because he did not deserve this, at all. Nice speech, Luna, he said with a wink. Thanks, I said softly, unable to even come up with a comeback, because it was like he already knew. His arm wrapped around my shoulders and he kissed my forehead. I wrapped my arms around his waist, giving him a squeeze. No matter what, he'd still be important to me. It was much later and I was pacing my room. Do I kick him in the balls or do I just shout at him? I knew it was him the moment I heard the knock on the door and pulled it open. He immediately had me in his arms, kicking the door shut behind him and passionately kissing my L.P.S. I kissed him back, trying not to drown in the pleasure that consumed me, before I remembered that there was something I really needed to do. Tugging away, I frowned at him, making him raise a brow. Did I do something? Yes. Your dick is not the side of my forearm. I blurted out, instantly regretting how stupid that sounded. Wait. What if Liam thought I knew it had been a joke? But it was too late for me to say anything when Liam crossed his arms, curling his L.P.S. in as he suppressed a smirk. Oh yeah? Have you seen it? He asked, and I could sense his amusement growing. Or, has that been on your mind all day? My cheeks burned and I glared at him. Not at all. There are many better things to talk and think about than your disturbing minuscule pen, I growled. At least minuscule works, I mean from what I could see you're tiny. I smacked his arm hard. Hey! I scolded, feeling absolutely mortified. Listen. This isn't funny, you scared me when you said your D.C.K. was that big. He chuckled, and I mean full-on laughed, not even caring that I was humiliated and terrified here. Seriously, Raven? I said your forearm, I could have meant from your wrist or any part of your arm. He teased, still laughing. The sound made my stomach flutter, but it was so awkward. You said forearm. I said, staring down at my wrist. That terrified me. He smirked, leaning down. Why were you imagining us having S**X? He teased, advancing towards me. My heart skipped a beat, and I did my best to poke my eyes out at him. Not at all, I don't want to have S**X with you. I lied, my heart racing when he caged me between the walls and his arms. Really? He whispered, our eyes met and I'd my L.P.S. No, not really. I said, my gaze falling to his moist L.P.S. I want a K.S.S. though. A small smirk crossed his L.P.S. before his L.P.S. met mine in a delicious sizzling K.S.S. that ignited that flame of desire that coursed through me and made me whimper in pleasure. His body was pressed against mine and I became very aware of his now hardwood that was pressing against my stomach. Our K.S.S. became hungrier. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pulling him down. Goddess, he was such a good K.S.S. I gasped for air and broke away, wishing I didn't need air right now, wanting to stay molded against him. I stared into the magnetic blue eyes of his wolf, breathing hard. Moving back slowly, I looked down at the visible tent in his grey sweat P*NTS, although his boxers seemed to be restricting him somewhat. I swallowed hard and a devilish smirk crossed his L.P.S. What's the matter, love? Want to take a look? He asked huskily. My cheeks flushed. As much as I wanted to, I shook my head, tiptoeing and kissed him hard before running my hands along his shaft for a moment, trying to get a rough idea on the size. He gr0aned in pleasure before I pulled away and glared at him. You ain't getting anything more because you made a mockery of me. I stated before getting into bed, trying to get rid of that ache between my legs. I've waited for years. I can wait a little longer. Liam said softly as he got into the bed behind me. His words tugged at my ch3st and I realized that he didn't really have long left. Time was ticking, and we still didn't know the answer to the curse. Chapter 62 Taylor. It was the following day and I had decided to bite the bullet and go see Channing again. SHT. I wasn't ready for this, but I had to do it. Taking Mama's flapjack and shepherd's pie with me was not enough, but this was the time I needed to do this. Anna was going to be out and I needed to do this when she wasn't around. Goddess and gods above, lend me your strength of courage and bravery because I need as much as I can get. Reaching Channing's home, I did the doorbell, before opening the door and entering. Channing. Tay. In here. His voice came. I quickly went to the kitchen, placing the food on the worktop and entered the living room. It was warm and cozy, decorated in browns and navy. Channing was on the sofa, remote in hand and holding a bottle of J20 orange. "Grab yourself a drink and come join me, I was going to watch the replay of last night's boxing match." "Right," I said. Going to the kitchen and opening the fridge, I took a bottle for myself and returned to the living room. I looked at Channing. That smile that he always had on his face was still there, his scruffy stubble and his hair that reached his shoulders. "My hero. What is it? I know something's on your mind," he said, his eyes crinkling as he smiled at me. I gave him a small smile, looking down. "The kids out?" I asked, trying to stall a little. "Yes, they are making the most of being out during the day, thanks to this curfew. I'm not complaining. I'd be happy if they came home on time every night. Would at least make me feel better and at ease. Remember how we used to sneak out after Mom and Dad went to bed?" I chuckled. "Oh, don't remind me about the SHT we got up to." He grinned. I remembered how we used to always sneak out and go for a swim, or a run, or just spend some time alone, even leaving pack grounds. Unlike me, Channing was able to talk to everyone. I like to be alone and am more of an introvert. I hate socializing, being super awkward and shy in large groups, so he never used to invite anyone extra on our brother time. Just the way I liked it. "Fun times, hey?" I said quietly. "Yeah, 100% fun times," he said, glancing at the screen as he took a swig of his drink. "Yeah, they were," I murmured. Since the battle, I had taken Channing out a few times. I would shift and he'd hold on to me as we went for a run, but the pain in his eyes after killed me, so I stopped asking to take him. I thought it would help, but it had only seemed to remind him of what he was missing out on. However, even then, not once did he refuse me, but slowly, our brother's nights out stopped. "Channing, there's something I need to tell you," I said, my voice soft as I stared up at him. "Tell me, kid, I'm a big guy and I know it's eating up at you," he said, placing a large hand on my shoulder. I nodded, looking at his tattoos that climbed up one arm as I took a deep breath. I found my mate, but he didn't seem to want to accept me. I began quietly. Channing's eyes flashed, and he growled. "Tell me his name, and I'll show him what happens when someone messes with my brother." I smiled slightly, maybe he'd want to kill Zach after I told him the rest too. I didn't want to associate the two together because I wanted to tell him about Anna cheating as completely separate first. I didn't want him to accept everything because Zach was my mate. I knew Channing enough to know how selfless he could be. "We'll see what happens. This is why I didn't tell you, you'd rip the guy to pieces," I joked. Channing chuckled. "You bet I would. No one around with my brother." "That is unless you want them to," he said, making my cheeks heat up a little, only making him roar in laughter. "Ah, you are too easy to tease." "Yeah, I guess I am. There's something else I wanted to tell you too," I said, biting off the metal cap to my bottle and taking a gulp. "You can tell me anything, you know that, Tay," Channing said warmly. "Yeah, I know. It's about Anna," I said quietly, looking up at him. I looked into his warm blue eyes determinedly. "Anna has been cheating on you over the last few years." There, I said it. I watched him, preparing for the worst, my heart thundering loudly, but his reaction wasn't what I expected. He nodded, sighing heavily. "Yeah, I know. I know," he said, making me stare at him in shock. He patted my shoulder and nodded. "What? Then how, like why are you still? For the kids, and the fact that I clearly am not enough anymore. I let it go, but I think she didn't realize that no matter how many showers you take, another man's scent stays behind. He said, staring unseeing at the TV. I felt so bad, but the fact that he knew. Channing. You know, you don't need to stay like this. She does not deserve you, it's not that easy, but I appreciate you telling me. How did you find out? He asked, now looking at me seriously. Another hard part. I stared at my hands, then looked at him, feeling a wave of guilt wash over me. My mate. He had a fling with her, but he cut it off when he found his mate me, but she told him she'll ruin his reputation. He told me because he still felt guilty. I rambled. Why did this have to happen? I hated it. His moment of silence felt like flipping forever. He told you, that's a step in the right direction. As for Anna blackmailing him, that's not right. Channing frowned. Do you like him? I looked down. I love him, but... No buts, does he like you? Yeah, but he was holding back because of all this. I mumbled. Yeah. I think he does like me. Well, there's nothing not to like. You are one of the purest souls I know, Tay. I appreciate you telling me about him and Anna, but I feel like he's punished himself enough. Forgive him, Taylor, if he really wants to apologize to me, bring him around. I have a few things around here that need fixing, he can get those done for me. He said grinning. Only Channing could be so selfless. If he wanted Zach to clean the entire back garden with his bare hands, I'll make sure it well happens. And Anna? I asked, feeling so much lighter. Her messing around was one thing. Her blackmailing your mate is another. I think I need to take that step and set us both free. It won't be easy, but I'll do it. I think that's the best decision. I said quietly. Yeah, I think I've had months to prepare, I knew it would inevitably happen, and now is the time. So, who's the lucky guy? He asked. I felt my cheeks burn up again. Zach, our Delta. I said, taking him by surprise. He let out a whistle and slapped my back. Now that's a handsome fella. He chuckled. Yeah. I agreed, he was fine. Now don't waste any more time with me and go get that mate of yours. Channing said. There's no rush, I'm watching this show with you. I said, crossing my arms. Channing nodded, giving me a grin. Yeah, let's walk this first, I heard it was a good match. I smiled and looked at the screen. Boxing was never my thing, but if Channing could sit through my RuPaul's Drag Race, I can definitely sit through his, and I enjoy it because I was here watching it with him. After a good 2 hours and when Anna returned, I took my leave, mostly because I really felt like slapping her a few. Stepping out of my brother's home, I mind-linked Zach, feeling so nervous. Zach. Mind if we can meet up? There's something I want to discuss with you. Tay. Can we do that another time? I'm pretty busy right now. I felt like I had just been punched in the gut. Yeah, sure. I replied, ending the link. That really flipping hurt. I know he was probably busy, but yeah, it still hurt. Maybe it was just me who thought he desperately wanted to talk to me. Chapter 63. Robin. It was mid-afternoon. The weather was cool, yet the sun was shining brightly and the windows were wide open. The sound of people shouting, some of the boys playing ball and a few girls laughing in a room down the hall, filled my ears. If I didn't know better, I would never have thought such an environment would be shadowed by the eyes of a killer. Right now, everything seems so normal. Raven and I were seated on my bed as I silently observed the girl in front of me. I don't mean to be a BH, but seeing Raven pay so much attention to Liam and literally just ignore Damon was breaking my heart. At the same time, I wanted to go over to her and shout at her for doing that. Did she not see that he was hurting? One wish I could just comfort him, but I knew that couldn't just be friends, not with that situation. Me staying away was for the best. I felt like I had been cheated too. I remember the first time I told him out loud I wanted him as my mate, and asked wouldn't that be great? He had smiled and agreed. But really? He had a mate already. On top of that, when the mating ball came and I had run to see him only to discover that we weren't fated, it broke me. But still, I held out hope that somehow, we could be together. I lost the will to even want to find my mate. Damon was just something special, someone sweet, giving and so loving. He had a huge heart and I know he FD up, cause I agree he did, but it didn't take away from the fact that he was a good person. We were now pondering on the curse once more. I swear I have done so much analysis into this that my head literally had memorized a lot of it. The book just delved into what we knew, there didn't seem to be any more clues. I wanted to break our alpha free from this curse, because he meant a lot not just to our pack, but to Damon. Raven was sat opposite, looking through the book once more. She wore an oversized net top that showed off her dark purple crop top underneath with leggings. She was a nice girl, I won't deny that, but I'm still mad at how unfair Damon was getting treated. Even if she wasn't doing it on purpose, it was obvious. From your notes, it feels like you think the answer lies in Liam. Like he has to figure it out. She said, her eyes full of concern. That's what I feel like it's implying, and Amelia's message to him with the card. I feel like she believed he could do this. So, you're saying that there's nothing that we can do? Raven asked, her eyes filled with hurt and worry. I felt bad about this entire curse thing, but I honestly think that was somewhat what's been implied. I'm still looking and searching, I'm sure something will come up. I said comfortingly. I won't give up, I'll keep trying. She nodded, staring down at the book in her hands. Robin. I know it may be out of line, but did you love Damon? She asked quietly. Her question made my heart thud, and I swallowed hard. Stay strong, Robin. Yeah, I do love him. I replied in a clipped tone. My voice came out colder than it was meant to, but can you blame me? It hurt, it really hurt, and what SVCKED even more was that he was hurting too. Even if I had stepped back and SVCKED it up, hoping he'd feel no guilt and move on, I still saw him hurting. You do? She whispered, her voice holding sadness. I looked up at her, my eyes flashing green as I pressed my LPS together for a second. You know, you need to stop hurting him. I said bluntly. She looked up at me, her eyes widening. I swear I felt awful. She was a nice girl, but she needed to get her SHT together. I know. I know I'm hurting him. She whispered, clutching the book tightly. He's a really nice guy who has FD up, I get that. But he doesn't deserve any less than the alpha. They are both your mates, then treat them with equal respect and love. I just feel like Damon is being used and he's IT for allowing it too. I said irritably. She looked at me, and to my surprise, she simply nodded. I know. He said to make it work with Liam, but it wasn't the right way and I can't balance it. I'm hurting Damon, every single day. I know that. Then reject him, set Damon free so that he can at least be happy and find comfort elsewhere, comfort and love that you can't seem to give him. I said as gently as possible because I didn't want to hurt her feelings, but I was hella mad. If it came to that, would you be there for him? Would you, you know? She trailed off, but I knew what she meant, making my heart squeeze in pain. I shook my head. No. I may find my mate. I don't want to hurt him the way I was hurt. I will just wait for my mate or stay single. I get dating, falling in love and having fun is part of life, but I'm trying to hold myself together. It's not easy when you love someone so deep that when they suddenly cast you aside, you feel like you're nothing. I made myself a deal, that I'll only fall for my mate from here on out because he won't cast me aside, but it seems like even mates get rejected. I finished off quietly. I don't know why I said it all, I should have stayed quiet. She looked really upset and I felt like too, but if she thought that Damon and I could just pick stuff up, then no, it wasn't happening. It would probably make her feel better, but I was not going to think of anyone but me. I don't want another heartbreak. He tossed me aside the moment she returned. Yes, I ended it, and I would not stay with a mated wolf, but it did hurt. I'm human too, I have feelings and I am going to guard this heart, now and forever. I'm sorry, I didn't mean it like that. I was just wondering. Damon said he had a connection to you. So I just thought maybe you love. I do love him, but that doesn't mean I'm going to go back to him. I corrected her. She nodded, sighing heavily as she looked down at her legs. You're amazing, you know what you want, how to do the hard thing even if it's painful, and you still hold yourself together. She said, frowning thoughtfully. I gave her a small smile. You're amazing too, Raven. You've been put in a SHTTY situation and you're trying to do the right thing, even if it isn't fair for everyone. But you need to make your choice, your decision. If you want Damon too, then you need to give your alpha the ultimatum that he deals with it, or he walks. And if that isn't something you want to chance, then it's clear you need to reject Damon. Our eyes met, I saw the pain and sadness in them. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was one she needed to make. Soon. Chapter 64. Raven. What Robin said was so true and I knew I needed to do this, I needed to talk to Damon. I couldn't keep hurting him like this. I won't wait any longer, I'm going to go and I'm going to talk to him right now. I can't carry on doing this. I was now back in my room, pacing restlessly. I decided to mind link Damon and ask if I could come to see him. I took a deep breath, my fists clenched. My heart was racing against my ribcage, painfully fast. Damon? Hey, everything okay? Can't I link you if there's not a reason? I asked, feeling guilty, thinking I didn't mind link him as often. No wonder he thought that. Course you can. But we both knew the truth. Well, I wanted to meet up with you, like to actually talk. Can I come around? I had to try my best to sound normal. Sure, Annie and Zach are actually dealing with a potential clue, but as soon as it's done, I can let you know. Perfect, thanks, I said, the guilt of what I was about to do eating up at me inside. Take care, gorgeous. His soft, deep voice came. I closed my eyes. Not gorgeous, evil, and cruel. I sank onto my bed, wrapping my arms around my legs and resting my chin on top of my knees. Sadness washed over me and the urge to wallow in self-pity threatened to overcome me, but before I could, Liam's voice came through the link. Bedside? Hey! I said softly. Are you okay? Concern was clear in his voice. Of course I am. You don't sound it. Ever the intuitive one. I am, so why did you mind link? I asked brightly. 2 hours from now, I want you to meet me at the edge of the woods, by the park. Okay, I said, wondering why. I needed to talk to Damon too. Is it important? I had something I needed to do today. Yes, it is. Can you reschedule? I couldn't deny him. Okay, see you then, I said, giving in. I guess I could talk to Damon after meeting Liam if he's not done before then. If he was done by then, that is. I decided to clean up my room a little, thinking about Mom. She was gone, would she be reunited with Birenji? How was Dad coping? His trial was in the morning too. I was not looking forward to it at all, but I knew I had to do it. An hour later, my room was spotless and I still had time to kill. Damon hadn't mind-linked again and the sun was already settling outside. I decided to change into something a little more appealing. Going through my wardrobe, I pulled out a matte PU leather shirt, which was nice and loose, and paired it with a black fitted skirt that had a corset tie right down the front. I picked out some black 6-inch heeled boots. Perfect, now I'll be 5'6". I touched up my makeup out of boredom before I glanced at the time. Guess I could head out and meet him early. Was Damon still not done? Damon? Are you still busy? Hey Raven, yeah, I might be a while. Is it important? He asked worriedly. No, I was just wondering. Liam wanted me to meet him, so I wasn't sure if you were done or carry on. We'll talk tomorrow. I didn't mean that. I'll come by later? If you can, Liam won't want you out past curfew. He teased lightly, but I knew he meant it. Okay. Tomorrow then. I said, feeling down once again. I walked through the pack grounds, the crunch of the gravel beneath my feet loud in my ears. I saw the guards glance at me. It was clear they were on edge. There was still an hour until curfew but the streets were empty. To my surprise, although I was 10 minutes early, Liam was also there. His eyes ran over me appreciatively, and I felt suddenly very self-conscious. You look good, he said, closing the gap between us and placing his hand on the small of my back, pulling me against him then leaning down and kissing my L.P.S. softly. Sparks rippled through me and I bit back my M0AN, only for Liam to deepen the K.S.S. as a helpless sigh left my L.P.S. Thanks, I said. Those heels are pretty neat. I may not get as much of a backache if you wear them more often, he said, placing a hand on his back and grimacing. I frowned. Hey, I'm not that short. Okay, I was, but still. He didn't need to complain. Besides, you aren't so old that you will get a backache. He smirked. Oh yeah? Well, we both have got to admit you're tiny. Well, we all can't be gorillas like yourself. I huffed. He put his arm around my shoulders, pulling me close as he planted a KSS on my forehead. I leaned into him, the comfort from his touch soothing the storm of emotions inside of me. So why are we going into the woods at dark? I asked. That's what the girl always asks the charming killer, he said, giving me a smirk, but it faded quickly and he slowed down. With my unpredictable emotions, maybe we shouldn't do this, hey? I can handle myself and you will be okay. We are doing this, I said firmly, placing my hands on his hip bone as I stared up at him. He seemed to be struggling with himself, but finally agreed. Nodding, he carried on walking, taking my hand. He threaded his fingers with mine and I smiled gently. The old Liam was in there. So, will you not tell me where you're taking me? Patience, love, he said, glancing down at me. I frowned, seeing some light up ahead. I realized he had brought me to Grandma Amelia's cottage. We're going in here? I asked. He reached into his pocket. I couldn't help but stare at the front of his jeans, looking away quickly before he spotted me. He unlocked the door and I stopped dead in my tracks at the warm, welcoming scene before me. The glow of the lights and the smell of freshly baked Victoria sponge cake filled the air. Soft music played in the background. The place was spotless. A new beige fluffy throw was draped over the sofa, with a few cushions in shades of purple on the couch, which were definitely not Grandma Amy's. The table had a dark purple tablecloth over it with a shimmery beige runner through the middle, set up with a few lanterns and an arrangement of fresh flowers in the center. The fact that he had decorated in purple made it clear it was for me. There were a few things set out on the table: a thermos, 2 mugs, a can of spray cream, some sprinkles, and a Victoria sponge cake decorated with sliced strawberries, a cake that I knew Liam had baked. Liam had set up a date for us. The surge of emotions that consumed me made me look up at him. I pulled him close by the shirt, wrapping my arms around his neck tightly. My heart was thumping as I didn't know what to feel and hugged him tightly. It's not much bit size, he said, standing straight and lifting me off my feet in the process, his arms around my waist. I looked into his eyes. Despite everything we were going through, he still took the time to do this. I thought you would be busy with Zach and Damon. How did you find the time to do this? He locked the door behind us and gave me a small smirk. Actually, I was working as I baked and cleaned this place up, he said, jerking his head towards a large pile of papers that sat on the kitchen worktop. Good boy, I said, patting his cheek. He gave me a look, prodding my cheek. It's only cake, though. I was thinking I should have gotten some food, but I was a bit stretched on time, and I remember you once joked about it, so. He remembered. Goddess. Flashback 5 years ago. I don't get why you baked just one cake, I complained, looking at the cake he had sliced into 4. I'm a growing girl, I need a cake all to myself. Growing from where? You're not even 5 feet. Damon teased, making me frown. Kiara giggled. It's a dessert, not a meal, Raven, she said, taking a bite of Liam's baked cake. Well, one day I want to have an entire cake for dinner, and I'm not sharing it. You owe me, Liam. One day, he replied, pushing his slice towards me. No, no. You have it, I said, feeling guilty trying to hide my pink cheeks. I don't actually want any, he replied, amused. Oh, perfect, I said, taking his share, all for me. My precious. End of flashback. I stared at him. How was it that he remembered stuff like that? Thank you, I said, staring at the table as he led me to it and pulled out a chair. I love it. I hope it tastes as good. I haven't baked in a while, he said, bending down. He kissed my neck, sending a rivet of pleasure through me, tucking the chair in. My heart skipped a beat as I watched him take the seat opposite me, in his light grey shirt, blue fitted jeans, and those bracelets and chains he wore. He looked so hot. His intense gaze met mine as he picked up the knife and cut a small slice of cake. He placed it on his plate before placing the rest of the cake in front of me. My eyes widened as he held out a small spoon. Eat until you're sick, he replied, smirking. Right from the plate? I asked, staring at the delicious, fluffy cake before me, that sprinkle of icing powder begging to meet my L.P.S. Why was this so fun? Yet, he said, as I took the spoon from him, our fingers brushed and I bit my L.P. Thanks. I'm going to eat like a pig, so don't judge. I've never judged before. Liam said, taking the cap off of the thermos and pouring us both a mug of hot chocolate. I narrowed my eyes as he shook the can of cream. Hey, are you saying I've always eaten like a pig? I said, pouting. Have you? Of course not. I just love food at times. Like all the time, I said, watching him spray a generous amount of cream into both mugs before spraying some into his mouth. He, raising his eyebrows at me as I found myself staring at him. Oh my! Chapter 65. Liam. Watching her sit there as she watched me made me smile slightly. She was gorgeous and perfect. The way her eyes sparkled when she looked at the cake in front of her. That hint of cleavage that I can see. Her hair framed her face, her bangs falling into her eyes, and she had smoky black makeup. Her scent enveloped me welcomingly. As much as I wish that we could be forever, I had to prepare myself that maybe, just maybe, this curse wouldn't break. I know I said I don't give a SHT, but I would give a lot to just get to spend more time with her. I remember what the book held. I had a pretty good photographic memory, but there was nothing that seemed to hold the answer, no matter how many times I replayed it in my head. That's why, in this crappy time that surrounded us, I wanted to fulfill the promises I had made to her long ago. Or at least some of them, no matter how mundane they were. Watching her eat that cake, the smile on her face, the way she seemed to forget I was here. It was worth it. Because I also saw the conflict she felt when she was herself around me. Her guilt towards Damon was forever there, and it hurt. Did I want them on me? But it was clear she was a tad more innocent than she acted. I mean, she did snag a feel of my DK, but I was only half turned on. My poor little pint. How the hell were she and Kia friends? Raven talked naughtily, but clearly, she was all talk. That was cute, I'll corrupt her completely. If I have time. That negative voice at the back of my head came. My mood darkened, but I pushed it away, not today. This cake is so good, it's even better than I remember. She said, looking at me, her eyes filled with happiness. I just hoped she wasn't hiding her true emotions from me. She discarded her spoon, breaking some cake with the knife and bit into it instead. It's so much more fun to eat with your fingers. I'd let her eat her cake first. Half an hour later, Raven and I were cuddled up on the sofa. I couldn't stop teasing her. She had eaten the entire thing, although she gave me a few bites, and now I knew her tummy was hurting. Don't laugh, it hurts. She pouted, a hand on her stomach. Really, why eat it all? Hey, you gave it to me. She said, sticking her tongue out. I leaned over, stroking her tongue with mine, making her eyes flutter shut and a soft sigh escape her. You weren't forced to have it all. I said with a smirk. She grabbed my t-shirt, stopping me from moving back as our eyes met, those irresistible sparks that coursed through me making my head spin. Thanks. I loved it. She said softly. I'm glad. I said, lifting her onto my lap. I wrapped my arms around her and she curled into me, resting her hand on my heart. I knew, despite her being with me, her conscience always made her struggle, so I wouldn't push her. As much as I wanted to take it further, it needed to be for the right reasons and when she was ready. Liam. Yeah, love? I asked. The urge to mark her was always there too. I brushed her fringe aside, looking at her arched brows that were always hidden by her hair. It made her look pretty different, still gorgeous, just a lot older. You know, I know this stupid prophecy keeps saying you are the dark, but you aren't. You will always be my light. Her eyes flashed, and the intensity of her emotions were clear in them. You will get through this, Blue Eyes. She cupped my face, and I wasn't able to hold back my emotions. I lifted her. This was my mate. My special someone, the one I always wanted. She was here. Yet the fear that tomorrow she would be gone, never left me. As if sensing my emotions, she wrapped her arms around my neck, and pressing herself against me. Love, I couldn't even get the words out, as she broke away, baby, you need to stop. I don't want to. I gripped her wrist, stopping her. No, I said softly. Not until she was mine. Heart and soul. Like what you see? She asked, surprising me. Yeah, I growled, oh Liam. She cried out, as I began to move my fingers slowly. That's it. Good girl, just relax, love. I was so hard. She was perfect. Easter, Liam. She whimpered. As you wish, darling. Liam, she whimpered, as I kept going despite her struggle to move away, I love you. I love you too. She whispered back. I held her tightly, laying back on the sofa with her on top of me. Chapter 66. Zach. I had just finished off what we had been working on with Damon, and after bidding him farewell, I decided to go to Taylor's. He had wanted to speak to me earlier, but I had been really caught up. We were getting somewhere with this killer. Let's hope so anyway. The moment he had mind linked, the urge to just drop everything and run to him had been hard to not do, especially since he had been ignoring me since that day. Now, what do I take him? I can't just go empty-handed. I was not good at this, but there wasn't anything I could really give him. I stopped at my room to shower. I was a mess and I did not want to go over looking like this. Once I was done, I pulled on some boxers, some jeans that I took a moment to pick out because, although I found them a tad tight, I knew Taylor always checked me out in them. I smirked, pulling on a graphic tee and leaving the pack house. It was really quiet, although I could hear a few of the members in the pack lounge playing games. Guards who were in the clear flanked the entrance, giving me a nod. It really did feel like a prison. Not missing the weapons that the guards were holding. Tonight, thanks to that footprint, we had been able to track back the killer's footsteps, right towards one of the graveyards, but it ended right there at the gates. We weren't able to gather any more information inside, but we had set up some cameras and sensors discreetly. Well, I hoped it was discreet anyway. I reached Taylor's house shortly after, my gaze lingering at Jacob's home, which now felt eerie and ominous. The reminder of what had happened there returned to the front of my mind. I turned away, ringing the bell, hoping it was Taylor who opened it and not his parents. The goddess didn't really hear my wish when his dad opened the door. It looked like they were both heading out. Hello, MR and MRS Alston, heading out. I said. Hello Delta Zach, yes, we are. We will be staying at Channing's for the night. He's assigned for surveillance, so we are staying with the children. Mr. Alston said, smiling warmly. Perfect, I get to talk to Taylor. We have an escort who will take us due to the curfew. MRS Alston added quickly. Yeah, of course. I said with a nod, spotting the two men who would guide them. Both were in the clear from being the killer. It was strange to have to doubt your own pack members. Were you here for a reason? Mr. Alston asked. Yeah, I need to talk to Taylor. I replied. He's upstairs, go right up. Mrs. Alston said with a smile, he's probably watching TV. Thanks. I said, squeezing past them. They closed the door behind them and I headed up the stairs, following Taylor's scent, and reached his room. The door was open and I stepped inside. It was the first time I had come here. I looked around, taking note of everything, wondering where he was. Maybe the bathroom. I dropped onto his bed, looking at the poster on his wall. We really were pretty different. A perfect match. I heard a door open and the sound of whistling mixed with the scent of bath products, something floral laced with Taylor's own delicious scent. He entered his room without a care in the world, then he froze, his eyes on me, but I was too busy raking my eyes over that body of his. Was my mate fine? Water ran down his body and into his towel. I wanted to yank off the towel and look at him properly. I mean, I've seen him shift, but he was one of the more modest men when it came to walking, so I hadn't really seen the goods. Eyes up here, Taylor said. I clenched my jaw, my L.P.S. set in their usual thoughtful pout. You can't really control where I look, if I want to look lower. I can. I said C0CKILY, before leaning back on my hands, not missing his gaze falling to my crotch, something that made me twitch. Was it wrong that I wanted him on his knees? But I remembered what I had done. Right, I can't. He said, a small frown on that gorgeous face of his. I'm surprised you came. Weren't you busy? He walked over to his drawer, picking up some moisturizer and applying it to his face. So my mate was angry that I didn't come? Cute. I was, but I came as soon as I got free. You wanted to see me? I asked, now standing up, shoving my hands into my back pockets. Taylor turned, his heart racing. Our eyes met and I swallowed. How I wanted to pull him into my arms and ask him to forgive me. I told Channing. Taylor said, those chocolate eyes of his softening, the pain in them made me feel like a guilty. It was my heart's turn to race. Was it bad? And, I said softly. Channing being Channing. He took it like a pro, and you know what? He knew that Anna was cheating on him. More than that, he's breaking up with her, not because of the cheating but because she blackmailed you, and he thinks it's high time he ended it. I closed my eyes, feeling a weight lift from me. Thank the goddess. Or in this case, Channing. I will apologize to him in person too. I'm sorry, and I know I owe him. You do, he will make you work around the house and yard. Taylor said, sounding cute. I tilted my head, I couldn't wait to work this man's fine. Just the thought of Taylor made me twitch. I have had a few one-night stands with men, but something told me Taylor was going to be a whole new level. I stepped closer, closing the gap between us. And what about you? Do you forgive me? I ask, dragging my attention from his worship-worthy ABS and into his eyes. I do. Chapter 67. Taylor. I forgive him, I had to, I'm too in love with him not to. Zach was standing so close to me I can feel his breath on my neck, his fingertips ghosting up my bare arms, not touching but close enough that I could sense the sparks of the bond rippling through the little air between us. Are you sure? He nibbled softly on his bottom LP. All that was standing between us was this barrier, and now that's gone there's nothing keeping us apart. I'm sure, I replied quietly. I can give you more time, if that's what you need. I know he would, that's what makes him so perfect for me. His patience. I forgive your Zach. I step in closer, he closed his eyes for a moment, letting the feeling of it overpower him until his arm snaked around me and he pulled me against his hard body firmly, his perfect hazel eyes snapping open, and our gazes met. Thank the goddess! He exhaled, and before I had time to even smile, his L.P.S. were on mine. I love him, it feels like every other one we've had was in a stolen moment, but now that nothing is going to tear us away from each other, I finally feel like I can embrace every inch of his L.P.S. and enjoy this moment to the fullest. His L.P.S. aren't soft like a few guys I've k.s.s.c.d. before, this is my delta. He's only slightly taller, but it feels so like so much more when he presses himself firmly against me, threading one of his hands into the back of my hair and tugging my head up so he can force my mouth open and slip his tongue inside. The sparks that fly throughout my body are overwhelming. I've k.s.s.c.d. him before but never like this. It's like he's touching every inch of me, I can feel his nails. He feels good, being with him feels so good. No, Taylor. No, you can't give him all he wants just because he's all your fantasies come to life. Bad Taylor. But then he had to go and say the one word that immediately made me lose any grip I had on my self-restraint. Mine. My towel hit the floor quicker than a drag queen's death drop. This time when he looks back at me there's no trace of his stunning hazel eyes, instead replaced with the shimmering grey of his wolf. They are so beautiful, bordering on metallic as they capture the moonlight, like a hazy grey cloud surrounded by a silver lining. In many ways, that's what our relationship up until this moment has been. Tiny flickers of light being clouded by the dull darkness that wishes to suppress our happiness. The radiating glow within them only grows stronger as he lets his eyes fall from mine and run down body, talking in every curve and line of my muscles before settling on the part of me that most wants his attention. We've fooled around before but nothing like this, he's never seen me exposed, completely his. You are beautiful. He whispers, his fingertips trailing up my abs. And you're mine. He grabbed hold of me with both hands. He's so fast. Oh goddess. The guy definitely has strength and by the looks of it, stamina. Before he even has the chance to climb on top of me, I have his shirt off, the sparks from my hands on his skin only growing that much more intense without the fabric between us. He moved to my neck, everything in my being crying out for him to sink his teeth into it, but I become slightly distracted from that when his jeans definitely don't want to come off as easily as his shirt. How tight are these? Did you paint them on? I asked with a small smile. I thought you liked these jeans on me? You always seem to pay attention when I'm wearing them. He ignores my struggle, moving his back to my neck for a second. I lose all thoughts of anything but how it feels to have him against me like this, then I remember how much better it would be if he was all I could feel. So, are you attached to them? I asked, ignoring my question completely. He growled he likes that. Kind of, they're my favor. He's cut off when I tear the jeans off of him, the sound loud in the room. I thought he might be annoyed, staring at the scraps of material that now lay in tatters on my bed, but instead, it only seemed to fuel the growing fire within him. I look up at him, finally letting myself take in the sight of him above me like this. Almost every night since the day we found out we were mated. I've imagined this so many times. It's even better than I imagined. He presses his hands down either side of my head on the pillow, lifting himself up just enough that I can slip his boxers down his legs and uncage the beast within. A beast it is indeed. Yeah, I was definitely going to feel that in the morning. Zack smirks as he watches my eyes grow wide at the sight of his solid monster, saliva filling my mouth when he slowly runs his hand down his abs and grazes his fingertips at his bobbing length. Scared? Me? Scared? No. Nope. Kind of. But I'm not going to show him that. I've been with guys before, a few actually, but I've never been with someone like him, someone who can make my heart race with a single look, someone put on this planet just for me. He was made for you, Taylor, he was made for you. So was that. It should be uncomfortable, but honestly, it just feels so good. I've always liked a man who can push my limits, and something tells me that I'm going to find a whole new level with Zach. I only take his tip in to start, slowly rolling my tongue around the tip teasingly, my eyes on him as his head tilts back as a string of swears and gr0ans leave his P.S. I know I should wind him up a bit more, I should tease every inch of him, but the moment he started to slide across my tongue I knew what I wanted. Taylor. I knew he'd like it hard and fast, everything about him screams rough. Guiding him back slowly until only his tip sits in my mouth again, I wait before I press him forward fully into my throat, but I can sense the hesitation from him. Why are you holding back? I ask through the link, feeling shake as I flick my tongue against his tip. I don't want to hurt you. Cute, but does he really think I'm that fragile? I'm gay, I'm not flipping China. Okay then, hard way it is. What are you doing? I honestly can't tell if he's turned on or dying of embarrassment right now, either way, I'm getting the reaction I wanted. What? You said you didn't want to hurt me, I assumed that meant that you wanted to be the one to. He lets out a vicious growl, one that causes my own eyes to flash a piercing blue at his show of strength, a hot turn on. Taylor. I'm not. I mean I haven't. You were practically born to be the. Bless his little forever top heart, can't even say the word. I let him panic for a moment, just because it's so cute to see him like this, but he quickly catches on. You're with me, he said, frowning. I smirk at him, something that I thought might earn me a KSS, but instead, I get something so much better. His hands come out to grab my throat, tilting my head back. I'm going to make you pay for that. Yes, Daddy. Or if you want to pay for more such audiobooks, you can send us a request in a private Facebook group, or join us on WhatsApp, a link is given in the video description. The rest of the audiobooks will be uploaded in the next episode. Join us on Patreon to listen to more unlimited audiobooks.